Hello and welcome to my channel. Well, I'm going to talk about something that if you've been around knives long enough, this will happen to you. And there's always people who come in there and say, uh, I've done this all my life and this has never happened to me. Okay, fine. You're an exception. But for the majority of people, um, the issue is basically the difference between carbon steel and stainless steel. And what happens? What happens when one is exposed to moisture, S35 in stainless steel, and this is carbon? Well, everybody knows, carbon's going to rust. And so, not everybody, but you'll figure it out sooner or later. Um, and, there's all kinds of preventative treatments and this and that. What I'm going to talk about is when you pull your knife out of the sheath and you're expecting to not see rust, and bam, you got it. Now, how did that happen? And this I've already minimized, but I mean, it was bright red, or not bright red, kind of orangish. You know what rust looks like. And I was thinking, if I were out in the field, I just strap this knife on and pull it out of the sheath, and bam, it's got rust all over it. What would I do? Well, the ideal way is to braid the rust off on the rust spots and leave the rest alone. But a lot of times you just sand it off, And so you're going to have to use improvised sanding materials, and that would be like cutting stuff. A lot of times wood. You can even take a chunk of wood and use it like a sandpaper, or if you have another knife, actually go after the carbon spots. And the reason why I say that is I know about comments is because one post a while back I said I cut myself 3 times in one day, and one person, had to mention that they never cut themselves and that I was incredibly careless and everything else, um, which is true. I was, I can go for I wouldn't say 3 months. But I can definitely go a long time without cutting myself, and then all of a sudden I'll cut myself multiple times in a row. You know why that is? It's because I'm human. I'm not a machine. I make mistakes, and I'm not going to cover it up. If you handle a lot of knives all your life, and you never cut yourself, well, good. I'm not saying you're lying or anything, but most people, whether you handle knives perfectly trained or not, are going to get themselves cut sooner or later. And most of the time, if you look at it, it's your fault. But sometimes it's just circumstances, It's like things wound up in a strange way. Like all these knives right now. I'm barefoot. And if somehow I turned or whatever, yeah, again, you should be wearing shoes and everything. Well, you wear what clothing you want to wear. I'm more comfortable barefoot, and especially in a house. I'm not going to wear socks and shoes in a house when it's warm and stuff, I mean, if it was cold, that's a different story. But anyway, the thing that I was trying to get on is this: is if you have a lot of different choices in your knife, the handle materials, uh, the blade steel, and everything else. And that choice that you make, you got to be prepared for the disadvantages of that knife. For like a carbon steel blade, you got to be able to be prepared when you're not at your house. Where see, this was real simple. I just reached down to my knife maintenance box. It's a little box. It's got sharpening stuff, the oils, and all that other stuff. And I got something called a super eraser. It's basically just like an eraser, but it's a little bit more abrasive, like a pink eraser. You could even use one of those. Um, but the thing is, you want to stop the active rust from going on, because if it's left alone, left long enough, it will destroy your knife or your knife handle, especially materials like leather, and carbon. Stainless steel doesn't say stain proof. There are some steels out there, but most steels, even, you know, you're in saltwater environment and you leave it in there and you never wipe it down and everything, it's possible, there might be a spot or two that could get some rust on it. So really, you just have to know the limitations of it. Now this, some people call this patina. And that's what I'm going to say. Oh, look, I stuck this in a potato. No, I stuck it in a sheath wet. Now, what the thing is, it had this super tough coating on it, to protect it and everything. And I took it off because that also affects the cut when you're cutting something. I mean, you feel it. And an SE3 is a little, that tough foam. It's the same material that was used in this Target thing, but it came with some speakers, so I was going to use that as a dart type shooting thing too, a background. But yeah, I mean, you get that feeling, I'm going to pull my knife out and look at it and just admire the blade. And you see like, oh crap. Well, what you got to do is stop it as soon as you see it. Don't put it back in and say, oh, I'll get to that later. And you got to realize what happened. I was walking around, and I threw this in the ground. And because I was walking around, normally I will wipe the blade off on my leg before I resheath it and everything. But something must have been going on. I wasn't thinking. And I put it in there and forgot about it, too. For at least a day or two. I mean, because I was watching a video and somebody was talking about SE3 and how they liked it and everything. And usually when I see a video about a knife that I've got or have or something like that, I'll pull mine out, and mess with it and look at it. Like, oh yeah, I see what they're talking about on that. Nerd out. And I pulled mine out of the sheath and went, oh crap, we're gonna stop this video that I'm watching. I didn't say, and then I'm going to make another one, but in the back of my mind, it's like, anybody that says they never make mistakes is either inhuman or a liar, flat out. I mean, that's what it is. You're lying to yourself. Also, if you don't acknowledge, the only way to learn from mistakes is to acknowledge you made a mistake. Otherwise, you're deluding yourself. If you go on and say, that never happens to me, I don't know who you are, in comments, everything. This is random. You don't have to prove anything to me, I mean, you don't have to try to look superior. You may or may not be. I don't care, I'm just talking about my experiences on my channel and stuff, and hope that I can relate to other people, or see if maybe I am maybe everybody else that's my age and grew up around carbon steel never gets a rusty knife because they learn it's procedures. It's just like anything else. If you do routine maintenance, you're going to catch a lot of things you didn't notice. Like depending on the leather and how well it was tanned and everything, that can change the color of brass. The chemicals in it can start affecting the steel, corroding. A lot of the stuff is just, oxidization, air getting to it and everything, or drying out. I put these two up here because I used to have another one, and I kept it in the back of my Jeep, and unbeknownst to me, every time it rained, which when I lived in the desert in New Mexico was rare, but here in Texas, yeah, rains pretty regularly, especially North Texas. Every time it rained, that water would come down and hit the knife, kind of like that. And I didn't know it. And by the time I found it, the sheath was gone. The handle was gone. You can fix all this. You can take the rust off and everything else, but I think I lost that knife because I had it sitting near a trash can, and sometimes if you bump stuff and you don't notice it, unless you dig through your trash can when you go to throw it out or notice the weight, you can throw away something. So I think that's the way it did, because I know even if a knife looks unsalvageable, I'll put it aside and say, maybe for a rainy day, I'll work on this. And yeah, we get a lot of rainy days, and I don't always, get to them and stuff, but I know I would have fixed that. But anyways, with leather, it's got to be treated. I don't care if it came perfectly treated or whatever. Um, Leather is basically the hide of an animal. And what keeps the hide of an animal from rotting out and drying out? Well, it's alive. It's got oils going to it and blood and everything else. Well, when you tan something or dry it out, you're trying to preserve that hide over a period of time for whatever, with hair on or hair off or whatever. There's a whole, uh, people have been doing this for thousands of years, tanning hides or figuring out how to use what you would normally throw away. This part of it is just you wouldn't eat, or there's going to be leftovers, and just instead of being wasteful, use it. So out in the field, if you notice that your leather is starting to soak through, well, if you don't have any oil or any way of treating it and stuff, you're gonna have to deal with that one next time you get around society or something. Kind of inconvenient, if it's like a weekend trip. It could be really major if you were separated from society for whatever reason and you were on your own. Then you find out how well that knowledge that you've gained has become because yeah, the stakes are different in a survival situation, you know. Uh, but anyway, yeah, I just thought I'd point that out that Essie makes an S35VN version of this. Yeah, it's not going to be as tough as the 1095, but what do you encounter most often? Am I encountering pine knots that I have to paw my way through with a knife? Or am I encountering moisture and rain? Well, here in Texas, it's raining. This would have put up, and it's still kind of like knife abuse, and yeah, shame on you, and smack the back of your wrist with a knife for abusing it, or being stupid or careless, but I mean, that happens, and if you have no plan for that, if you say, well, I'll just put it back in there, it's going to get worse. And you can get pitting, especially like on the edge and stuff, that'll start affecting its sharpness, its ability to be a knife, if you give it long enough. Nature wins, give it long enough, you ain't even going to recognize that knife. It's carbon steel. If this handles were wood, same thing. Wood, depending on how well it's treated and sealed. I mean, if you're using a knife and everything, those surfaces wear off and stuff. So yeah, this is the hardest part to get the rust out of. It's that jimping. You like jimping and everything. Yeah, I like it for my thumb. Wait till you get rust in there. I got it out, but I mean, still, it's not as easy as a flat surface to get it out. So there are advantages, disadvantages to everything. And know your limitations on carbon steel, advantages and disadvantages, and have stuff prepared for what's most likely to happen. How rare is this? How rare is it for carbon steel, 1095 carbon steel, to rust when encountering moisture if it doesn't have a adequate protection on its surface? And another thing I thought of, I'm not coming up with super impressive stuff, but a lot of times when people do a treatment test for carbon steel to test it for resistance and stuff, they go with a lot of stuff that are oils and everything else. What do you usually use on a car? Wax. Wax is going to be the best thing. Now, of course, it's going to wear off. But it's not as sticky as oil. And I would think, like a car wax, some kind of car wax would work. Now, again, are you going to eat with this? Are you going to use it as a processed food that you're going to eat? Because, you slice an apple, all that surface went on that face of that apple that you're about to stick in your mouth. If it's something like mineral oil or mink oil, or I don't even know if mink oil is safe, but I do know mineral oil is, then you can eat it. It's not going to hurt you. But some kind of super duper chemical makes 1095 like S35VN on stainless resistance. Yeah, later on, you may, if you or anyone you know ever applied this coating on your knife, contact the law firm of blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. You could be entitled to a substantial reward if you're dead. Call now. Yeah, so, that's all I'm trying to say is, I make mistakes. I acknowledge them. I'm not proud of it, so I'm like, oh, look what I did. I'm an idiot, you know? Uh, but things happen, and then that's how that happened. I didn't have another sheath. I didn't take care of it right away, and I forgot about it. Out of sight, out of mind. It's in the sheath. Don't pull it out. Don't look at it. Don't look at it. Don't pull it out. Oh my God, you did it. Now this is an older one. Um, this is carbon steel also. See that? Almost kind of like a different color there. Yeah, that's one thing you want to watch out for is coloring and coating. A lot of these coatings wear off. If you were trusting this, probably has rust and everything. Yeah, well, that little chip you got there or that little scrape, that isn't impervious anymore. Just like this, I took this coating off. If I'd have put that sheath in there, this knife in that sheath, the way it was with that coating, I bet there would only be anywhere where I've taken the surface off, like scratching it, for a ferro rod, trying to make that 90 degree. And you don't have to do that to your knife, you can use something else to strike your ferro rod. Not all knives have to have a 90-degree spine. But I only did it on a little bit of a kind of a compromise. But yeah, that happened to me, and I just wanted to pass it on as a learning experience, not a bragging experience or anything else. Just, always be prepared. You're not always going to be prepared for everything, but just prepare for the most likely thing. If you're carrying a carbon steel blade, have some way of maintaining it, particularly rust preventative. You'll probably have to reapply it, depending on how long or how much you use it. And even if you don't use a knife, every once in a while, I try to do this with my knives on a regular basis, but I'm not very good at it. Pull them out and look at them. This knife is perfectly fine. And then you pull it out and you find out, oh my God, there's a bunch of rust all the way down here. It's not in this case, but it could be. I think this one's stainless. It might be carbon. You pull out the wrong blade. What's wrong with you? Yeah, it's carbon. Chrome vanadium. So chromium and vanadium add to stainless properties. It helps with it, but it's still there's some like D2. It's not really stainless steel. It's close, but it can rust also. So yeah, there you go. A long rant about my oopsie. I should have just taken a picture of when I pulled out, like a before and after. Like, oh my God. But my mind goes into repair mode right away. It's like I'm not thinking about videos or anything else. Like, oh my God, how long have I left this in here? And what can I do to fix it? And so that's what I did. Like I said, magic eraser. And then instead of putting oil in there, I put mink paste. I know it's not that good and everything, but I'm not using this to eat and everything. And it needed something a little bit more durable, almost like a grease. You put cosmoline in it. And then I cleaned out the sheath itself. That's another thing, it's the SE kind of plastic, polymer type of sheath. You want to get in there, I'd use the pipe cleaner. You can use paper towels or whatever. But get in there and clean out. In my case, it wasn't just moisture. There was some dirt in there. I'd been throwing it in the ground. So yeah, there you go. I could blame it on the dinosaurs, but it was my fault. I did that. The dinosaurs didn't borrow the knife and go out and do that. I could easily blame them for it, but I'll accept responsibility this time. Look at that patina. I did it so well. How did you do it? It looks just like an accident. Well, that's because it was. Anyway, thank you for watching, and have a nice day.